Our next guest on Planet America has been described as scum, a creep, a parasite, and the most evil lobbyist ever to operate in Washington, D.C. Jack Abramoff is seen by many as the embodiment of everything that is bad and corrupt about American politics. He was sent to jail for fraud. He was also involved in bribing a congressman who was sent to jail. A business associate of his was gunned down in a mob-style hit in a street in Miami. But Jack Abramoff was also one of the best-connected men in Washington, close with the most influential conservatives of the last 30 years, rubbing shoulders and greasing the palms of presidents, senators and plenty of members of Congress. Jack Abramoff's life of contradictions and corruption has been the subject of a documentary film, a feature film starring Kevin Spacey, and now his own version of events in a fascinating book called Capital Punishment. He spoke to us earlier this week from Washington. Reading your book, you come across as a devoutly religious family man, a prominent and influential conservative who also went to jail for fraud and corruption, a self-made man, somebody that made a fortune but then lost it in a dodgy business deal with a partner who was killed in a mafia-style hit. So many different Jack Abramoffs in this book. Can you be all of those people?
Well, I think a few of the, you describe a few of them a little bit better than they actually were, and probably better than the folks who made the movie about me. They probably should have had you there to help them, but it wasn't my partner who actually was killed. There was somebody else killed, but I actually was involved, just FYI, on the business side. Most of the money I made, and I made tens of millions of dollars, we gave away to charity. I did lose a little bit of money in that transaction in Florida, but that wasn't the biggest problem down there, unfortunately. Yeah, look, unfortunately, I guess my life was interesting, let's just say, to say the least. And I was involved in many different worlds and different things, and keeping them all straight in my own head, let alone anywhere else, was often difficult. Are you the same man today that you were then? No, I don't think so. There are aspects of my personality that I combat. I'm hyper-aggressive. Unfortunately, I had an ethos of basically whatever it took to win, I would do, within what I thought was basic laws of morality and legality, but unfortunately I crossed the line in both. And so I've tried to, over the course of the 8 years since my career came to an end, combat those things and keep them under control. But, you know, changing any personal characteristic is very difficult, but I'm hopeful that I'm headed in the right direction.
Okay, you might have changed a bit. Has Washington changed a bit? Like, is Washington any different now to the heyday of K Street?
Not really. It doesn't really change. It just gets more polite looking. When they put reforms in, they're not usually meaningful or systemic reforms. They're reforms to make them look like they're doing something about a perceived problem. But most people don't perceive it as a problem. Most people perceive that way of life as their way of life, and they just need to dissemble a bit and make sure that they can present it better. So I don't think it's better, no.
So what is the problem?
Well, the problem is basically that money is used in Washington, and I used it, to influence policy. And in any other town that's called bribery. Here it's called campaign contributions and social interactions and other things. And our system, unfortunately, is rife with it, as I'm sure other countries as well. But here, I think the people of this country are very much opposed to it. And getting the policy in Washington to be more aligned with the people's views in the states is the mission I've actually taken on since I've come out of prison.
Can we talk a bit about what you did as a lobbyist? We have lobbyists in this country, but there's not nearly as much money involved, and our system is different to your congressional system and so on. How would you use money to exert influence and get things done or not done?
Well, lobbying in America, at least, really involves two things. One is access to the decision maker, and two, being able to be persuasive with one's arguments to get the decision maker to make the right decision. Now, here, access to the decision maker often means social interaction, which can mean meals and golf and taking them to sporting events and things like that. or campaign contributions. Lobbyists are a very vital part of the campaign finance system here, too vital a part of it. And so members become very reliant on lobbyists, both for the largesse that the lobbyists can provide, and secondly, for the information the lobbyists can provide, because lobbyists are often more expert in some of the issues that members need to be concerned with. So my activities relied on, unfortunately, using money. I raised more money probably than any lobbyist when I was a lobbyist for members of Congress. I raised millions a year, and it was both parties. Both parties are the same as far as this goes. And I had a staff of 40 lobbyists who worked for me, and they spent their full time making friends and increasing their friendships on Capitol Hill. I had a stable that included the best seats to sporting events in town. I spent $1.5 million a year on sporting tickets alone. I owned restaurants, I had airplanes, I had basically every resource at my disposal to create and enhance those relationships, and indeed we did.
I'm interested in what you say about controlling the information, because something which I found interesting in the book is that we all have images of congressmen with $100 bills coming out of their pockets, but you were saying that it's often about the staffers more than about the congressman, because the staffers tell the congressman what to think. So how do you control a staffer?
Well, I mean, that you've exactly put your finger on it. Controlling the staff or getting the staff to be influential in your behalf is one of the lobbyists' main missions. In fact, most lobbyists, I would say, are more focused on lobbying the staff because the members have too much to do. The federal government of the United States is in far too many aspects of Americans' lives. And so instead of the Congress being like it used to be in the old days, 100 years more, 150 years ago, congressmen didn't even have staffs. They wrote their own letters. They wrote their own speeches. There were famous congressmen such as Daniel Webster and others of American lore who didn't need a staff. Now they look like mini corporations. And with corporations, you don't always run to the chairman of the board. You run to the CEO or the CFO or whatever it is. So similarly in Congress, you go to the staff. So with us, with staff, we would wine and dine the staff. We'd take them out to play golf. And more important than anything, unfortunately, became the ability to control staff and the members of Congress through the offering of positions once they were done their tenure on Capitol Hill. Most of them, I would say 90% of the people I dealt with when I was a lobbyist, wanted to work for me. They wanted to triple, quadruple their annual income by becoming a lobbyist or working in that sector.
So you wouldn't even have to give some money, you just gave the vague promise of a job sometime in the future, and that would be enough to potentially buy a congressional office?
Well, it would probably be more than the vague promise. I never offered a job to somebody I wasn't going to actually hire, but I was hiring lots and lots of people. And the actual offer of an actual job, once accepted, we found that those staffers basically became our employees right then, even though they hadn't left their congressional office. On top of that, notwithstanding the provision of employment, we would raise the money anyway. There was almost no member of Congress that we as lobbyists wouldn't raise money for, because every time you raise money for a member of Congress, you would gain leverage off the member of Congress, which is why in the reform efforts that I'm now involved in, we are strongly encouraging and indeed trying to draft laws that would prohibit lobbyists and their clients from giving any more than $100 a year to basically any federal office holder.
Okay, so that's one thing you can do. Do you have any other ideas of things you can do to improve the situation?
Yes, closing the revolving door so that staff can't come off and members can't come off Capitol Hill and join the lobbying industry. Basically, I had hoped, and I wrote about in my book, as you recall perhaps, that it should be a lifetime ban. That wouldn't survive our constitutional tests here. However, we believe a 10-year ban would. And so we are right now drafting legislation that would reduce the amount that lobbyists and special interests could give to any federal race to be $100 in the aggregate per year, making it de minimis. Number two, to make it so that if you're a federal employee of any kind, you may not enter the influence industry for 10 years after drawing your last paycheck. And there are other reforms as well, such as tightening the laws of these super PACs and some of the others that are involved in our elections.
Jack, are there any instances looking back over the last 10, 15, 20 years where you could say, this was wrong, what happened here or didn't happen here in Congress, a bill got blocked or something got through purely because of the money involved, Is there something that you think, gee, this really is totemic of what's wrong with the system?
Well, I wish it was just one thing. I mean, as I look back and as I wrote my book, there were scores and scores of things. The entire system, at least as I played it, and as the guys at the top play it, revolves around money.
Just before we let you go, Jack, I was just wondering, are there any politicians who you would have associated with in the heyday who turned their back on you immediately as soon as you got into strife, who you might want to square up with live on TV right now? Say, Rick Santorum! Anyone at all you can think of?
Well, do you think they're tuning in? Yeah,
no, you're safe.
Everyone
Say what
watches
you like.
Play America.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, my attitude was this, that I did what I did that was wrong, I did. I don't blame anybody for what they did or what they didn't do. Politicians are politicians. I don't care where they are in the world. They're there when you need them. They're not there when they're there when you don't need them, when they need you. And when you need them, they're gone. And that's the politician's trade. There are some who were there, and I focus on them, the friends who stayed loyal. Most of my friends, by the way, stayed loyal. The very active politicians ran for the hills, but that's to be expected. I don't begrudge them.
Fair enough.
Well, it's a fascinating story, Jack Abramoff. Perhaps less fascinating if you've actually lived through all of it. We appreciate you coming in and talking to us about it today.
Thanks.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.